Chris Barron has been in the public eye since he broke in his early 20s with the Spin Doctors. They were a massive band. Their first record sold over 10 million copies, were nominated for a Grammy, and were featured on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine. Aside from all that, Chris is probably the most gracious, friendly, and open-minded frontman you'll ever come across. I got to sit down with him in his Upper West Side apartment just to kick it and talk shop.
I got good Roger Daltrey material.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
okay.
I do.
Well, we have a lightning round at the end, which will be good, where we
Okay.
just sort of we'll throw some stuff at you.
All right.
This is Porter Block. I'm a New York-based musician, and I also am a huge music fan. This podcast explores music from every angle, and I'll be talking to people who've made the business of music the focus of their life. Welcome to In a State.
I guess, we're podcasting, but I'm seeing dozens of notebooks up there.
Yeah, that's not all of them. I write every morning. You can see I got 3 shelves of full notebooks.
You're journaling.
Journaling is a kind word for what I'm doing. I wake up in the morning and I write 3 pages. Some mornings it's like the silty, papery white coming through the Venetian blinds and sifting through the whiskers of my cats. And other mornings it's you suck, you're an asshole. What the fuck are you doing? I've fucked up the coffee, and I wish I was like half as cool as I think I am.
In a state.
I read you saying, I'm just the guy with the funny hat from the Spin Doctors.
The musicianship and the rapport and the chemistry of the Spin Doctors cannot be underestimated. I feel like I'm like the thin end of the wedge or the tip of the spear. I'm like the personality that kind of pries people's attention open. But one of the things I've always been glad about with the Spin Doctors is that we have these songs that are really appealing and kind of ear candy. But if you delve into those songs, there's a lot of pain in the lyrics, and there's a lot going on, even in the pop songs. But then if you delve into the repertoire, we were just as nasty and dirty and heavy as a lot of these grunge bands. We've got songs like Refrigerator Car and Shinbone Alley that grapple with these themes that are very dark. And the grunge bands weren't the only bands that were like grappling with the darkness of the world. And I think one of the things that differentiated us from them was that philosophically, we weren't nihilists, and I'm dead against nihilism as a philosophy. I don't believe that art that's based on a lack of hope. A philosophy that doesn't contain some kind of solace is not really much of a philosophy. It doesn't take a lot of genius to look around at the world and see that there's systematic racism, institutionalized cruelty, and the trick in art, songwriting, poetry, philosophy is to offer people some kind of a reason to continue to be the best people that they could possibly be. And that's the job, of a philosopher or an artist or a songwriter to include. You can't leave, you gotta leave a hole in the ceiling for the light to get in.
In a state.
You're asking how do I write this stuff, or do I write for specific things? And the answer is no. I just write. I sit down and I give myself permission to write the worst piece of shit anybody ever wrote, or to not succeed at writing anything. The reason I do those pages in the morning is that my idea about writing is you hone your skills just the way an athlete does. I sit down to write. I don't think about genre. I don't think about tempo. I don't think about anything except the idea that I have in front of me. So a song is a proposition, like a song is like Jimmy Olsen's Blues, right? It's a proposition. I'm sitting in a cafeteria that I've snuck into because I have no money. And, I'm 19 years old, and I look across the cafeteria, 18 years old, and there's a young woman who looks like Lois Lane. So the songwriter brain kicks in, and I think to myself, okay, I'm sitting here like I stole an apron and snuck through the kitchen, tucked the apron into my backpack, and now I'm eating food that I didn't pay for. I'm looking at this young woman who looks like Lois Lane, and I'm thinking, well, if she's Lois Lane, I'm not Superman, right? So there's the proposition of the song. But then who am I in the song? I'm Jimmy Olsen. there's a cool idea. I'm thinking Lois Lane, please put me in your plan. Lois Lane, you don't need it. Superman. So a year later, I come across that in my notebook. And here, once again, I'm like, wow, that's actually a really good idea for a song. And then suddenly I'm like, come on downtown and stay with me tonight. I've got a pocket full of kryptonite.
I got a pocket full of kryptonite. I got a pocket full of...
I went to high school with John Popper, the great harmonica player of the Blues Traveler. And, you know, he was playing music on a very advanced level on this, you know, playing the harmonica like a virtuoso at 16. And I'm like 15. And I'm like, so John, you play the blues, right? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, and rock and roll kind of comes from the blues. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. I was like, okay, so show me the blues. And so he played me like Paul Butterfield, the Blues Brothers. I went down to the Princeton Record Exchange, this iconic vinyl record store, with my allowance in my pocket. So I had like $6.27 in my pocket. And I bought these like 99-cent blues records.
Right.
Yeah, and they were like, you know, I bought like, you know, he had all this like slick stuff, and I bought this one compilation that I never saw again. It's called Memphis Blues Again Volume 2. And it just had these like gut bucket guys singing about like Jelly Roll, and for me that was like this big eye-opener, because I started writing songs because I wanted to sing, but I couldn't really learn other people's tunes. My guitar teacher was like, okay, next week put a record on, learn the song, and we'll see how you do. So I put on Aqualung. I was like, do. And I was like, fuck it, I'll just write a song. And I wrote, you know, I wrote a tune instead of, and that's how I started writing songs. So
Do you think that listening to John and growing up with him the way that you did, that somehow your voice took on some of the characteristics of his harmonica playing?
absolutely, yeah.
That
I gotta
tone.
say, like, you know, I think I influenced him as well. Like, it's pretty well documented that I smoked a lot of pot. I haven't smoked pot in 18 years since my daughter was born. I stopped when my daughter was born. In high school, we used to get like super high. When I met John, we gradually became friends in our English class because we were like the two smart asses. And then one day we were like, let's hang out after school because we were both interested in music. And I was like, can I drive your car? And he was like, you got a license? And I was like, no. And he's like, okay. And he gave me the keys, and I ran over a stop sign in the snow. This is the kind of guy John is. From then on, we would hang out after school, and I would always drive. And so we would just drive until we were lost in the hills of New Jersey. We'd get super high, and then we would just play. And we'd sit in the trunk of his Cherokee and just like play tunes and just freeform. And so I think I definitely learned a hell of a lot because I just went anywhere. So he'd be like, wait, what the fuck is he doing now? You have to change harmonicas. And it can't be understated that, you know, the Blues Traveler, those guys dared me to move to New York. Bobby Sheehan, to whom my new record is dedicated, you know, basically dared me to move to New York City. And so those guys, I opened up for them when I first moved to town. I lived with them. There's no doubt that I owe a lot of my career to the start that those guys like got me on.
Angels and one-armed jugglers.
I want to talk a little bit about the songs on the record.
You know, Angels and One-Armed Jugglers is the title track.
Good old Adelaide.
And then in Saving Grace, the first line of the chorus is, I'm tired of songs about angels.
I'm tired of songs about angels. I could use a punch in the face.
So this is funny, like contradictory kind of thing going on there, but that's all just part of the process.
In Greece. It's hard to find your reminders, and it's easy to
Till the Cows Come Home, which really is, you know, laid out like a jazz standard, and it runs through some tone passing passages. That was a great sentence. That fall into that idiom. I didn't set out to. I wrote that song on a ukulele.
You know, it's funny. I always feel that the uke, because the chord forms are different, make you kind of think about whatever you're playing an A differently than if you were playing it on the guitar.
You pick up a ukulele and people think you're going to play Tiptoe Through the Tulips. And if you play something with like an emotional content on the ukulele, people are immediately disarmed. You know, it's a great scam.
I'm assuming you have more than one ukulele, right? Any true uke player
Yeah, I have
needs a couple just to pass
well,
around, right? Like
you can
the
see
Harrison.
that cabinet right there is my guitar cabinet. I have like
Yeah, but I mean, just some
tons of
gearhead
guitars
stuff.
and-
We can talk about Roger Daltrey.
I got good Roger Daltrey material.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do. We did that concert at Carnegie Hall, And we did Substitute and shit, I can't remember the other tune that we did. But he was so happy with us that he took us on Letterman. We backed him up on Letterman. We go into rehearsal to do Letterman with Roger at like SIR. We walk in and there's like, you know, big sound stage, and you know, there's my mic stand, you know, with the bike tape on it and everything. I look, and then he's got a regular mic stand, but I look at the mic and there it is with the duct tape and the wire going up and down. And you know, we did the rehearsal, and it was like so cool. It was like singer to singer. We were working out the vocals together, and he had his hand on my shoulder, and I was like flipping. After the rehearsal, he showed me how to do the thing where you swing the mic at the end of the... Because there's this cute little move that he does at the end. He's like, here's the whole thing. Twirling it around is like you just twirl it around. At the end, yeah, you're holding the wire in your right hand, and you take your left hand and you pull the wire through your right hand, and it pulls the mic back into your hand. And that's like the slick little button at the end. You know, everything needs a button.
You just gave away the trick. I can't believe it.
My training with writing, with playing, and with singing, and with performing is get the fuck out of your own way. The great thing about having an opera singer as a teacher is like opera and rock and roll are really similar. People think that you're gonna rock, it's time for me to rock. So they tense up their throat and they adopt this like pose, then they think that they're rocking, you know, or like you playing the guitar and you like hold the pick real tight and you hunch over your shoulders and you bang away at the guitar and you think you're rocking. But what's 50 billion times more rocking is to have like the vocal technique to get all of that bullshit out of the way, open up your apparatus and let what's really in your soul come out. And that's how I write, that's how I sing, and that's how I play guitar. Is like just get all of your bullshit out of the way. And oh, let's do this.
Okay, first record. Well, you kind of got into that, but
yeah, no,
first record with your own money.
Right back to the Who, man. The Who live at Leeds. I bought it from, you know, it was like I was like, what's a good record that's not too expensive? Reached over across the desk. Dude, the Who live at Leeds, $3.99. It's a killer record.
First show.
John Denver, Horden Pavilion, Sydney, Australia. 8 years old, had 103-degree fever, was pretty much delirious at the show, kind of hallucinating, and it was an absolutely transcendent experience. John Denver, baby. You know, when I lost my voice, I felt like I needed to take a break from music. You know, you can be selling 50,000 records a week, and you walk into a mall, and 300 kids want your autograph, and it takes 3 hours to buy underwear. You know what I mean? Or, you know, you live in a 2-bedroom apartment, and you drive a Subaru, and you know, you walk down the street, and once in a while, somebody's like, "Are you the guy from the Spin Doctors?" And you're like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Dude, that's fucking awesome." And you're making the exact music that you want. You don't have a record label breathing down your neck. You do a Kickstarter, and, you know, some, like, 500 people just go, "Yeah, you're Chris Barron, make a record," instead of like a record label being like, "Hey, where's the next 2 Princes?" So it's like, to me, I've always looked at life like a bite of celery. Take a bite of celery, and like there's like the couple of strands that are long and the couple of strands that you bite through. Yeah, and it's like, you know, every bite of celery in the celery stalk of life, you know, these different strands are longer and shorter, and you just kind of, but it's all celery.
I had a blast talking to Chris. I was already a fan of the Spin Doctors, and now I'm a fan of his solo music. I want to thank him for coming on the show, and you for listening. I'm a singer-songwriter as well. You can listen to my stuff on Spotify or iTunes, Porter Block, or listen to this podcast at www.teammensch.com. Remember, if you're listening to good music, you're in state.
It's so hard to know what I've been living